Hello, everyone. I'm 2 minutes late. Happy Friday. Happy Friday, Ike and Kiki. Hannah, hello, hello. Nice to have you here. I still can't figure out what the best lighting situation is here. I have these two lights like this, and they're really good for shining on my workspace. But I don't know. I'm just secondary in this whole affair. Yeah, I've just spent an hour trying to put my daughter to bed, hoping that she'd be asleep by now, and she's not. But I asked her to give me 20 minutes. So we're going to do a 10-minute portrait live stream now. And I have a lot of great shadow shapes, especially for you, Kiki, and for everyone, because shadow shapes are just such a treat. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having joined me throughout this week. Say hello. Let me know where you're joining from, what you're going to be drawing with. Ask me any questions you may have now, perhaps, because once we start drawing, it's hard to type and draw at the same time. And apparently it's good if you put questions or just chat in the chat. You can have a parallel conversation to what's happening here in the chat with each other, if you like. I will be doing a what did I call it? Shading and Shadow Workshop. Kiki, that's great. Shading and Shadow Workshop. Wait, I cleverly put this stuff here. No, not like that. In OBS, this streaming software that I use. Shading and Shadow. Here we go. This is my sister, the Shading and Shadow muse that we have. I'm doing a series of workshops. We did Line and Light last Sunday. Shading and Shadow is coming up this Sunday. I would love you to be there. I know some of you are already going to be, and it's going to be lots of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. And we've been focusing the last couple of days on shadow shapes. I have been. I think that yesterday was very shadow shapey for me. I really loved the piece that we worked on yesterday. And this is something we'll get into a lot more with the shadow shapes, because they're just it becomes such a sculptural, three-dimensional shape play, which really gives kind of depth and form to our portraits. And so I'm going to explain this a bit more now, because I know, Kiki, you asked, I'm not sure if I can even see these shapes that you're talking about, so we're going to get into it today. And I just finished uploading this tutorial, which I told you about yesterday. Now it's edited and uploaded and available on my Patreon. So this is a piece that I painted yesterday, and now it's up on my Patreon for you to watch. Hello, happy Nikolaus. That's right. It is the 6th of December, and Nikolaus Day in Germany, and Niklas in Belgium, I believe. Here is Jouko, a Finnish friend from the Keino community. So we have another great Keino reference here. And here we go. Behmin Penselit on Instagram. So tag Jouko. Sorry, I've never said that name before. But either way, thank you for this awesome reference. It's so cool. And everyone go tag and follow Behmin_Penselit on Instagram. And now we're going to work on this together. And I was unable to print the reference like I did yesterday. It worked very well just before starting. So I don't know, I'll put my phone here and hope that I have enough battery to get through it. And I put it on Do Not Disturb. And we'll see how we go. You can already get started. This is going to be a 10-minute portrait. And here we go. A bit flickery over there. And a lot darker than it actually looks. So Ike chimed in and said, drawing with a Faber-Castell pencil. Nice. I have a Faber-Castell Polychromos. This is a walnut brown. I'm particularly fond of walnut colours. Walnut was the first ever natural ink that I made. Hello, Sara. Nice to have you here. Uta. Hannah Marie is using colour pencil and Artgraph Taylor watercolour. Cool. What was I thinking? I was thinking I'm going to do line work with this pencil, And then I'm going to use my water-soluble graphite to fill in some of the shadow shapes. Because if I draw with this one and then touch it with water, it's not going to dissolve. Whereas the graphite, which I will then use to fill in the shadow shapes, is going to dissolve. So I'll see how I go, scaling up this reference from here to here. And hi, Lewis. It is nice reference, isn't it, Sahar? I also really appreciated all of the shapes and wonderful expression here. And I don't know if Klaus is here, but the map in the background of this reference is also particularly nice. And I know that Klaus really likes maps. So let's do it. I noticed it takes me a while to get into these live streams. It's a 10-minute portrait live stream, but it's 8 past 10, but I started 2 minutes late because Holly didn't want me to go. So let's do it. Let's go. Lisbeth is also here. Inktense fuchsia pencil. Ooh, indigo polychromos. Nice, nice, nice. Continue to talk amongst yourselves if you're parallel to the drawing experience, because apparently it's good for people to chat in the chat. And if you have questions, please ask them. This is the place to ask questions. Ask questions in the chat, so that I can answer your questions. Or maybe you will say things that will lead on to other things. And so I want to say things about shadow shapes. When I first thought of Klaus when I saw the reference pic. Yeah, right. Klaus, our dear friend Klaus, likes drawing on maps. And here is a reference in front of Scandinavia, I think. All right, so shadow shapes here, there are really clear shadow shapes. This is already a bit distorted, but that's okay, we'll just keep going with it. So there, I'm going to draw this shape now. I see a really clear shadow shape here. And sometimes, like when I'm talking about shadow shapes, it's going to be really obvious. But we have like, oh wow, it goes all the way around here. If I just keep drawing this is an unusual way to kind of go about drawing it. This is going to be a wonky drawing. There is this big dark shape which is wrapping around the ear. Oh, it's actually, this highlight is within the whole big dark shape. That's interesting. So yeah, I'm just kind of, this is very different. I'm just puzzling this shape together, just trying to focus on like what's really dark and what is really light. So here I have a light shape, this is a light shape, and all of this shape around here is really dark. This is like the shadow shape. And we have, like if we were looking at it in terms of just black and white, if there were just two values, then you can really simplify the shapes really easily. But the interesting thing about what I'm referring to as shadow shapes is there are so many subtle variations between that really dark and really light. And here there's almost nothing really light. There's like a bit of highlight here on the nose and cheek here, but everything else is quite dark, which is really interesting. So between the range of like that brightest here and that darkest here, there are many kind of gradations, many levels of light and dark. And if we start to identify like the bigger kind of abstract shapes that those are, like I feel like now I'm getting proportions way off, but here I have a really interesting shape. So I'm looking more at the shapes than the proportions, although getting the shapes right can help you get proportions kind of right. But thinking of it in terms of shapes, I'm drawing shapes rather than thinking, what is the anatomy of an eye? I'm just looking, I can see like 3 bright shapes within this dark shadow shape. And interesting, this is really cool. There's like a little bit of the shadow coming down here. And then here, between the nose and the cheek, there's like almost no value differentiation. So I can just imagine I'm continuing this line and come down here. Rather than drawing that line of the nose, I'm just drawing what I see. And I don't see a line, even though I know it's there. And yeah, I thought it was really cool on Sunday when you asked and you posted about it, Kiki. In the workshop, I think you mentioned it first about the shadow shapes, that you're not sure you're seeing them. And And I remember learning to see these. I remember I watched a tutorial by David Chieftes, perhaps is his name, and he was talking about these different, and he was like working with really vivid color, but he was talking about different values and different colors, and it's like, I don't even see the difference in what he's talking about, but obviously he does, because he is understanding something I'm not. And it was from then on that I realized, like, maybe like by continued practice, practicing looking and seeing and perceiving the subtle differences, the more we practice, then the more of that we start to see. And I think it is something that's really learnable, discerning those different nuances. And it's really satisfying once you start to notice, like, oh wow, I think I can see things now that I couldn't really see before, right? Or I didn't know what I was looking at, and I didn't know how to represent it. And as you practice and start to become aware of these things, then you do see them, and it will inform the decisions you make while you're drawing. So that was a lot of talking. Fanny Packs, hello. Louisa just got home. Welcome. Need to eat. Enjoy your food. So now, I think I've put down most of those shadow shapes. Oh, and we're already halfway in. So yeah, I've put down really clear shadow shapes. Now I will get my water-soluble graphite. I also see other shapes. I've just kind of drawn the dark shapes at the moment. So I'm going to fill these in and say these are the dark shapes, because there is some subtlety within the light shapes, some different forms that I'm seeing and excited about. And there's also variation within the dark shapes. But just to kind of wet our toes in this idea of shadow shapes, this is the most, actually the whole red hat would belong to the dark. Even though it looks so bright and vivid, if I squint at it, it's a dark shape. That's really interesting. And that's something that when you start to catch those kind of things, and be like, oh, like my first idea is just that the hat is this bright red color, and then as I'm putting in the shadows, I'm going to leave it like this for now, but I just kind of caught myself thinking, oh, it's bright, and realizing, oh, it belongs to the darkness. So yeah, all of these really dark shapes, I'm wondering now, should I hatch in the hat, or do I just leave it bright? Let's focus on the face for now. But just an interesting observation that the beanie, the hat, is actually dark. It really helps to look at references black and white, because just that simple setting on your phone, or taking black and white photos, or looking at black and white photos, just that already, the black and white setting is simplifying that process. It's made those decisions, like it just simplifies the image that you look at. All right, just under 3 minutes left. So here I feel like now I have these really clear shadow shapes, and it's just like basically in two values at the moment. Is there anything you can do to minimize graphite shine? What kind of graphite are you working with? I think in my experience, harder graphite seems to be much shinier than softer graphite. This here is water-soluble graphite, and this won't be shiny. I really like working with soft graphite, so like 6B, 8B, and I think the issue is more with smudge than shine that I would say I have with it. But if you're photographing, if that's part of the concern, that is another issue. How do you photograph? Like that is something where scanning or photographing graphite, it can just like bounce the light back at you. And then you need light coming from flat, like shallow angles from opposing light sources. That helps to, it means the light would come down here and bounce off in that direction instead of bouncing back at the lens. So tell me more about your graphite challenges. Why is it so shiny? In what situations is it shiny? Yeah, I would say there are many kinds of graphite pencil, and by maybe playing around with different graphite, I really like dark, soft graphite. Like that could make a difference. Okay, now I think I've got all of the dark shapes, and I could, with my remaining time, so these are super, super clear shadow shapes. These are like all my dark shadow shapes, and just these shapes puzzled together has made a face. And now, if I'm looking into the light side, I also see that there's like, this is what we would like maybe start. This is also shadow mapping. Oh, drawing on the wet just melts this pencil. But so now within all of these light shapes, we have more like mid-tone shapes, and or even the highlight shapes. You could reverse it and you could start just kind of like drawing a shape around where the light would be, where the highlight is. All right, that is 10 minutes. But I'm excited about the light shapes. So get in a bit closer. So start to see there's like, here's a light shape, here's a light shape, here's a light shape, here. So this is the reverse of thinking of the shadow shapes, is wondering what the light shapes are. And then you could take it, it's only supposed to be a 10-minute portrait. I could like, it would feel totally natural to keep drawing into this. But the next step would be like at a, not as dark as this, although I've kept the shadow shapes quite light, I would go into, maybe I can just like, maybe there's a little bit on here. I would just fill these shapes with like the next variant level of graphite or shading, whatever it is I'm using. Like all of those mid-tone areas, leaving the highlights, I could just now like fill with another shape. And then at the borders, the transitions between shadow and light, you start to recognize after observing it a lot, there'll be these different kind of gradations. Harder edges will be super fast, like at this hard crisp edge, it's going to go from like super dark to super light over here. And then there are edges around here where it's a much softer transition. But there is at that transition point, like as we move from here around to here, there will be the different gradation, but you can kind of set it into shapes. And if you're thinking in the terms of just a few different values, you could have a value range which is for a particular shape. And I think that is a really interesting way when you start looking at all the shapes. There are so many cool shapes in here. And when you start subtly discerning the difference between those different values, then you've kind of got like, you've got a lot of different shapes that you can work with, which help find your way around putting things in the right place in the drawing. With shadows, it's always a struggle for you. That is interesting, Ike. Your motto is try it and see if it works. Yeah. And sometimes you just try it and it will work. And you're like, oh, okay, good. So that's it for the drawing. Are there any questions towards the end here? Kiki says, Blackwing has a matte pencil. And Louisa says, Stedler, I think, do a matte finish graphite. Oh, no, Faber-Castell do a pit graphite matte. So yeah, matte pencils. Kiki, you see them when I describe them. Cool. So it'll be interesting after me describing that. Try it with some other references and start to look for those shapes as you're drawing, because I'm sure you will see them. And when you do, it's like it becomes an adventure and very helpful in the drawing process. So yeah, I would love everyone. Okay, well, I missed something. What is Advent? Says Fanny Pax. Advent is the 24 days of December leading to Christmas, traditionally the 4 Sundays before Christmas. There are Advent calendars which go from the 1st of December to the 24th or the 25th of December. And it's leading towards the winter solstice. So if you're in the northern hemisphere, I also think it's really interesting to look at the other traditions, that because there are all these different traditions and belief systems, and no matter what's happening, there is the winter solstice, which is the moment, like leading into the winter solstice. I notice here that it's just dark for so long, and I'm in central Germany. The nights are so long, it gets dark really early in the afternoon. It's getting darker and darker and darker. So through these drawings, throughout this month, through Advent, I'm choosing references which are going to be moving into darkness and addressing different themes. And as I mentioned earlier, I have workshops that I'm hosting at the moment. On Sunday, we're doing a shading and shadow workshop. And the idea here is that we're progressively moving darker with the reference and addressing the idea of using light and shadow and different ways of perceiving light and shadow that help us in portraiture or in any image making. I think it's not just relevant to portraiture, it's for any art and photography, understanding these ideas and how we can use them to make a compelling image. That's the idea in my Advent thing. So Advent is moving into the darkness through the rebirth of the light at the solstice, when the days start to become longer again, which they do 3 days after the solstice, which is the 24th. That is the summary. So thank you, everyone. What have we got here? Thank you for the explanation. You're welcome. Have some matte pencils. You can find the name for them on Discord. Yes, join the Discord server and share your work there. It's so good to see people sharing their sketches there. It's so much fun. I'm loving it. The link to the Discord server is in the description, but also at the top of the live chat if you scroll back up there. And someone's already posted. 2 people have already posted. That is so cool. So I love seeing what's going on Discord. You can share your work there. You can also share on Instagram, tag me. I will reshare to my stories. And I really appreciate having you here. And I appreciate the coffee. Thank you very much for my caffeine sponsor yesterday who bought me some coffees. Thank you very much. Graphite shine is the reason to use graphite. Yes, that is interesting. Rather than trying to avoid the inherent qualities of a medium, to be like, I'm going through my shiny phase at the moment, so I'm going to use shiny graphite. But I don't know, my graphite's not very shiny. Is it true that like the harder the pencil, the shinier it is? Because, I don't know, this is not so shiny, is it? Wait a minute. Is this shiny? I don't feel like I don't perceive shininess as being a problem when I draw with graphite. Like, I don't know. It's not. If I get the angle right or wrong, if I get the angle right, it's shiny. But this is 6 or 8B Faber-Castell standard pencil. Maybe if you're using a lot of it and really covering a lot of paper and you're filling in all the form of the paper, the roughness of the paper becomes filled with graphite. I guess it could be pretty shiny. The pencil lead's pretty shiny. Thank you, everyone. You're all awesome. Thank you, Jouko, for your reference photo. It was a wonderful example to illustrate this idea of shadow shapes. I hope you enjoyed it, Kiki, and everyone else. And give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And we'll be back here tomorrow, same time tomorrow, perhaps 2 minutes earlier. Perhaps not. Thanks, everyone. I love you all and wish you the best of things. And